For many years, Bugatti has stood at the very top of the car world. When people talk about the most expensive and most powerful cars ever made, one name always appears first: Bugatti. The brand has built its image on extreme luxury, limited production, and unbelievable performance. Cars like the Chiron and Veyron are not just vehicles. They are symbols of wealth and status. Owning one is like holding a piece of automotive history that very few people in the world can ever experience. But in recent times, something strange has started happening. The image of perfection around Bugatti is being questioned more openly than ever before. This change did not come from a single event, but from a series of small cracks that slowly started to form in the public perception of the brand. One of the most talked about influences in this shift is the content created by automotive YouTuber Mat Armstrong, who has been involved in projects that show the hidden reality behind some high-end supercars. His videos, along with other public discussions in the car community, have made people look at Bugatti in a slightly different way. Instead of seeing only perfection and engineering magic, viewers are now seeing questions being raised about parts sharing, maintenance costs, and long-term ownership reality. At the same time, the market for ultra-expensive hypercars is also changing. Buyers are no longer blindly chasing exclusivity like before. They are asking harder questions. Is this car really worth the price? Will it hold its value? And what happens if I want to sell it later? These questions are slowly changing how collectors behave. Even though Bugatti still represents the peak of automotive luxury, the confidence that once surrounded the brand is not as strong as it used to be. This is where the idea of a silent crisis begins. Not a dramatic collapse, but a slow shift in trust, perception, and financial expectation. And in the world of multi-million-dollar cars, even a small shift in confidence can create a big impact over time. To understand why people are suddenly talking about Bugatti's future, we need to look at how its pricing and value system actually works. A Bugatti is not just priced based on materials or performance. Instead, its value is built on three major pillars: exclusivity, prestige, and buyer confidence. Exclusivity means how rare the car is. Prestige means how powerful the brand image is in the minds of wealthy collectors. And buyer confidence means how strongly people believe that the car will maintain or increase its value over time. When all three of these elements are strong, prices stay stable or even rise. But when even one of them weakens, the entire structure starts to feel pressure. Right now, many observers believe that all three pillars are being tested at the same time. The Bugatti Chiron, for example, launched at around $3 million and became an instant symbol of ultimate luxury. With only a limited number of units produced, it quickly sold out and became a dream car for collectors around the world. But as time has passed, the resale market has started to show a more complicated picture. Some cars are still holding strong prices, especially rare versions like special editions, but standard models are not always performing as strongly as expected. At the same time, ownership costs are becoming a bigger topic in discussions. Maintaining a Bugatti is extremely expensive, from tires costing tens of thousands of dollars to servicing bills that can reach unexpected levels. For some collectors who already own multiple hypercars, these costs are starting to feel less attractive compared to newer alternatives from brands like Pagani or Koenigsegg, where ownership experiences may feel more flexible. Meanwhile, discussions in the automotive world have also been influenced by controversies and revelations shared online, including videos and commentary from creators like Mat Armstrong and others in the automotive space. These conversations may not directly change prices overnight, but they slowly influence how buyers think. And in the luxury car world, perception is everything. When perception shifts, even slightly, it can change the entire direction of a market over time. This is why people are now paying closer attention to Bugatti than ever before. Not because it is failing, but because its previously untouchable image is being questioned in public for the first time in years. When we look closely at Bugatti's current position in the hypercar world, the first thing that stands out is how complex its pricing story has become. On the surface, everything still looks extremely strong. The brand continues to sell cars worth millions of dollars, and demand for new models is still present among ultra-wealthy buyers. But underneath that surface, the resale market tells a more detailed and slightly more uncertain story. The Bugatti Chiron is the best example of this situation. When it was launched, it was priced at around $3 million, and it instantly became one of the most desired hypercars in the world. Only 500 units were produced, which made it feel extremely rare and exclusive. For many years, the Chiron held its value very well, and in some cases, even traded close to or above its original price depending on specification. But now, the market is starting to show signs of softening. Some standard Chiron models are being listed at lower prices than before, sometimes at a range of $2.4 to $2.8 million, depending on mileage and condition. This does not mean the car has collapsed in value, but it does suggest that the extreme demand seen during the peak hypercar boom period is no longer as strong as it used to be. Dealers are also reporting that certain cars are taking longer to sell, which is an important signal in the luxury market. When high-end assets start sitting longer on the market, it usually means buyers are becoming more selective and less emotionally driven. This shift is subtle, but in a market like Bugatti's, even small changes in behavior can have a noticeable impact over time. At the same time, special versions of the Chiron, like limited editions and performance-focused variants, are still performing better than standard models. This creates a split market where some versions remain highly desirable, while others experience more pressure. It is this uneven performance that is making collectors and analysts pay closer attention to the brand's long-term value stability. The story of the Bugatti Veyron adds another important layer to this discussion because it shows what can happen to hypercars over a longer period of time. When the Veyron was first introduced, it was seen as a revolutionary engineering achievement, with prices ranging from around $1.7 million to $2.8 million, depending on the version. It was one of the most expensive cars ever built at the time. It represented the peak of automotive engineering and was widely respected as a technological masterpiece. However, as the years passed and newer hypercars entered the market, the Veyron's resale value began to decline significantly. Today, many standard Veyron models can be found in the range of $500,000 to $900,000, which is a major drop compared to their original price. Even the more powerful and rare versions, such as the Super Sport and Grand Sport variants, have also experienced noticeable depreciation. This example is very important because it shows that even the most iconic hypercars are not immune to long-term value changes. The Veyron is still respected and admired, but its financial performance tells a more realistic story about how luxury assets behave over time. This history is now being compared to the Chiron, and some analysts are asking whether a similar pattern could eventually happen again. While the Chiron is newer and still highly desirable, the Veyron's trajectory serves as a reminder that initial hype and long-term value are not always the same thing. Another major factor influencing this comparison is the changing behavior of collectors. In the past, owning a Bugatti was seen as a must-have achievement for elite car collections. Today, however, collectors have more options than ever before, including brands like Koenigsegg, Pagani, and Gordon Murray Automotive, each offering unique engineering philosophies and exclusivity. As a result, Bugatti is no longer the only obvious choice at the very top of the hypercar hierarchy. This diversification of options is slowly changing how demand is distributed across the entire market point. One of the most interesting comparisons in the hypercar world today is between Bugatti and Ferrari, because it highlights how differently two luxury brands can perform in the same environment. Ferrari's limited production hypercars, such as the LaFerrari, Enzo, and F40, have shown strong appreciation in value over time. A LaFerrari, for example, originally sold for around $1.1 million, but today can trade for more than $3 million depending on condition and mileage. This kind of growth is what many collectors look for when they buy high-end cars, not just performance or design, but long-term value stability or appreciation. Bugatti, on the other hand, has not consistently shown the same level of appreciation across its lineup. While certain rare versions do hold strong value, many standard models tend to remain closer to their original price or experience moderate depreciation over time. This difference is important because it influences how investors and collectors think about each brand. Ferrari benefits from a strong racing heritage, emotional storytelling, and long-term cultural significance. Bugatti, while extremely advanced and luxurious, is often seen more as a technological showcase rather than an emotionally driven brand. This distinction plays a role in how the market behaves. Collectors often respond not just to performance or rarity, but also to emotional connection and historical significance. As a result, Ferrari's most iconic models continue to benefit from strong demand, while Bugatti's models face a more complex value pattern. This does not mean Bugatti is losing its status, but it does suggest that its role in the collector world is evolving. Instead of being the automatic top choice, it is now one of several elite options competing for attention at the highest level of the automotive market. Beyond resale prices and market charts, one of the most important factors affecting Bugatti's long-term perception is something far more practical: the real cost of ownership. On paper, a Bugatti represents the highest level of automotive engineering, luxury, and exclusivity. But in real life, keeping one on the road is a completely different experience from simply buying it. Owners are not just paying for the car itself. They are entering a long-term financial commitment that includes servicing, maintenance, insurance, storage, and specialized parts. Even routine maintenance on a Bugatti can cost tens of thousands of dollars, depending on the type of service required. Something as simple as a set of tires can cost more than a luxury sedan, with prices often exceeding $40,000 for a full replacement set. This is not because of unnecessary inflation, but because these cars are engineered for extreme performance and require highly specialized components that are not mass-produced. On top of that, many repairs require factory-level expertise, meaning the car often needs to be transported to approved service centers or directly handled by trained technicians. For wealthy collectors who own multiple hypercars, these costs may be manageable, but they still add up over time in a way that cannot be ignored. When a collector owns a Pagani, a Koenigsegg, or a Gordon Murray T.50, the comparison becomes even more important because those cars may offer a different balance between exclusivity, usability, and maintenance experience. As a result, some owners begin to reassess whether the emotional and status value of a Bugatti still justifies the long-term financial and logistical commitment. This shift is subtle, but it plays a major role in shaping how demand evolves in the background. Another major factor influencing the Bugatti conversation is how collector psychology is changing over time. In earlier years, owning a Bugatti was seen as the ultimate goal for elite car collectors. It represented a rival at the very top of the automotive world. If someone had a Bugatti in their collection, it automatically signaled wealth, success, and exclusivity. However, the modern hypercar market is much more competitive and diverse. Today's collectors have access to more brands, more limited editions, and more personalized experiences than ever before. This has reduced the automatic dominance that Bugatti once held. Instead of being the only must-have hypercar, it is now one of several top-tier choices competing for attention. This change has led to a more selective mindset among buyers. Rather than purchasing based purely on status, collectors now evaluate cars more carefully based on long-term value, driving experience, brand story, and ownership practicality. This is where perception becomes extremely important. Even small discussions in the automotive community can influence how buyers think. Online content reviews and breakdown videos have made it easier for potential buyers to see both the strengths and weaknesses of high-end cars. Creators like Mat Armstrong have contributed to this shift by showing behind-the-scenes details of exotic car builds and repairs, making the ownership experience feel more transparent than ever before. While this does not directly reduce the engineering value of Bugatti, it does influence how people emotionally perceive the brand. When buyers see the real-world complexity of ownership, they may begin to compare it more critically with other options. This does not mean Bugatti is losing its prestige, but it does mean that prestige alone is no longer enough to guarantee unquestioned demand at the same time. The broader hypercar market is going through a natural cooling phase after several years of extremely strong demand. During the peak period, especially between 2020 and 2023, many luxury and hypercar markets experienced unusual levels of growth. Buyers were willing to pay premiums just to secure allocations, and in some cases, cars were traded almost immediately after purchase at higher prices. This created a sense of unstoppable upward momentum in the market. However, as conditions normalize, that momentum is slowing down. Reports from dealers suggest that certain hypercars are taking longer to sell, and in some cases, asking prices are being adjusted to attract serious buyers. This does not indicate a collapse, but rather a return to more realistic market behavior. In such an environment, brands that rely heavily on perception and exclusivity, like Bugatti, can feel more pressure than brands with strong emotional or historical narratives. Another subtle but important change is that allocation premiums are disappearing. In the past, simply having the right to buy a new Bugatti could be sold or transferred at a significant premium. Today, that dynamic has weakened, suggesting that exclusivity alone is not as powerful a driver as it once was. Additionally, global buyer behavior is shifting. Traditional collectors in Europe and North America are becoming more cautious, while newer buyers from emerging markets are entering the space with different expectations. These changes are gradually reshaping the structure of demand, making it more complex and less predictable than in previous years. In the modern hypercar world, perception is often just as important as engineering. A brand like Bugatti does not only sell speed, luxury, or exclusivity, also sells a story. For years, that story was simple and powerful. Bugatti builds the most advanced, most expensive, and most exclusive cars on Earth. But recently, that story has started to face more public questioning. This does not come from one single event, but from multiple conversations happening across the automotive community, especially online. Videos and discussions involving creators like Mat Armstrong have played a role in bringing more transparency into the exotic car world. While his content is not directly focused on attacking Bugatti, it has contributed to a broader trend where viewers are more aware of how hypercars are built, maintained, and repaired. This level of transparency changes how people emotionally react to these cars. Instead of seeing only perfection, audiences now see complexity, shared components, and expensive maintenance systems that were previously hidden from public understanding. Alongside this, other public criticisms from wealthy owners and automotive personalities have also added fuel to ongoing debates about ownership experience, service costs, and brand philosophy. When these discussions spread across social media, they influence not just casual viewers, but also serious collectors who are active in the market. In luxury markets, perception shifts do not need to be massive to create impact. They only need to be consistent. Over time, repeated discussions about cost, reliability, or brand philosophy can slowly reshape how confidence is formed around a product. This is why even small controversies or viral discussions can have a long-lasting effect on ultra-expensive assets like Bugatti hypercars. Point one of the most important dynamics shaping Bugatti's current position is comparison. In the hypercar world, no brand exists in isolation. Every major decision made by collectors is influenced by what other brands are offering at the same level. When Bugatti is compared to Ferrari, Koenigsegg, Pagani, or Gordon Murray Automotive, the differences in philosophy become very important. Ferrari, for example, benefits from decades of racing history, emotional storytelling, and a strong cultural identity that extends far beyond cars. That emotional connection often translates into strong long-term demand and appreciation for its most iconic models. Bugatti, on the other hand, is often seen as the ultimate expression of engineering power and luxury, but with less emotional storytelling attached to its modern lineup. This difference affects how collectors think about long-term value. When buyers feel emotionally connected to a brand, they are more likely to hold on to the car for longer periods, which supports stable or increasing values. When the connection is more technical or status-based, decisions become more sensitive to market conditions, ownership costs, and alternative options. As newer hypercars enter the market with different design philosophies,